And welcome back to Shovicks Sports Hits. I'm Corey.
And I am Austin.
We got a lot of stuff to cover this week. We'd like to introduce kind of a new segment that we kind of want to add just to, enhance the listener's experience. And that's kind of the Shovicks Sports Hits. It'll be three of the top stories and our opinions over the last week or so in between episodes. Um, so yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on our new segment?
Kind of excited about it. It'll help kind of keep listeners or give listeners a different viewpoint on the big things going on in the sports world. It'll kind of expand from our kind of topics that we talk about to also kind of go over what's currently going on. So I'm excited about it. It'll also be something we'll take feedback and ideas from to always enhance. But I'm excited to do it.
Yeah, so no fancy like reportings or anything yet. It's kind of something that I thought of. Um, I know typically we kind of come in with an idea of what we're going to talk about, but sometimes it could be a football episode, and then all of a sudden we may throw something in there. So when it comes to the hits, there can be any sport, uh, variety of sports, or it could be all three um, of the same sports. And I have a feeling once football season gets off and rolling, it'll probably more than likely be that. So once football's starting, then that means like baseball postseason and college basketball and whatnot starting too. So, um, well, without that, let's kind of start. So we'll start with number three, Boston Celtics get number 18. As much as I know you don't like hearing that, um, fairly easy finals for them. Um, I know mixed reviews. Some people are saying boring. Some saying easiest road to the finals and through the finals. Um, Honestly, I think the Celtics can say, "I don't give a fuck." We still got number 18. No one's gonna look back and say, "Oh, it was the easiest." It's still a banner. It still pretty much puts us number one in the title category.
Yeah, I agree on the difficulty. I mean, you can only play who you play. Um, it's not like they're given a choice of who their opponent is. They just you have to go out and win. But to touch on the other one, absolutely boring. I think the only people who were entertained for at least the finals were Celtics fans. You'd like to have a final, like for an example, and I know we're going to touch on it, so I don't want to go deep, but we aren't Oilers fans and we weren't Panther fans, but we still tuned in and watched. Uh, you really want that in your finals for your sport, and I don't think the NBA finals delivered that. It was boring. It was blowouts. Uh, I'm not a Celtics fan. I'm actually a Lakers fan, so I'm not trying to take anything away from the Celtics. They won it. They earned it. It's theirs. But it was absolutely boring, and that's not good for your finals.
No, game one, Celtics won 107-89. Game two, Celtics won 105-98. Game three, Celtics won 106-99. And then that weird game four, the Mavericks won 122-84. That was kind of the point where everyone was kind of like, it was a mix. You had some Dallas people who were like, hey, this is kind of the turning point. And then you had the Celtics fans saying, well, they just wanted to win it in front of the fans. And that actually turns out to be the case. Deciding game, Celtics 106-88 against the Mavericks. Jaylen Brown MVP. I know you're a big Jaylen Brown fan. You said it when he was coming out of the draft. Um, I know it still hurts to see that he's wearing a Celtics jersey. I, on the other hand, super stoked about Jason Tatum getting it. I feel like he's earned it. Uh, Obviously, it wasn't just Jason Tatum. He had a couple rough games, uh, hence why he's not the MVP. But um, so, your thoughts on Jaylen Brown MVP?
I thought it was deserving. Consistency matters. I think this MVP award kind of goes to show it. And I don't. Is it fan voted? Do you know?
It is.
And I think it goes to show that fans are starting to appreciate more than just what the numbers say. Um, I do still believe Tatum's overall numbers and averages.
And actually, looking, I apologize. It is not. There's different network people.
Okay, so that makes more sense to
Yeah,
experts. Because honestly, he was the most consistent. Uh, he brought way more defensively, and it's nothing against Tatum. He's obviously one of the superstars of the league, but I thought for MVP would be between Brown and Holiday. Holiday had a couple good games uh, offensively, but he's always good defensively. But I know I jokingly say it. Maybe there's a little truth to it now, but I always say Jaylen Brown's better than Jason Tatum, and who knows? Maybe he is.
Then you got Peyton Pritchard hitting half court shots when it counts, 1 for 1 on the in that game. That's efficient.
That's what we do.
Yeah. So that wraps up number 3. Number 2, we're gonna go Scottie Scheffler winning another PGA event. This one actually had some drama. Old Tom Kim had to come in pretty clutch, his opposite of Rory McIlroy, to send it into a playoff. Um, yeah, just looking up and down this leaderboard, Scheffler obviously and Kim when they went were 22 under. That's video game numbers. Seriously, like we've played PGA on the old PS5 and you're hitting 20 to 25, sometimes even on the easier courses, aka like this one, you're getting like 30 under on the video game. So, yeah, just looking through. I mean, there's still some separation, obviously, but yeah, I don't know why these guys are even in the tournament. We had a guy finish with even. We had a guy finish 1 over. 2 guys finish 1 over, and then 1 guy finished 3 over. So probably should reconsider. So what's your thoughts on Scotty getting number 12?
I mean, at this point, it's like, why even watch? Outside of the U.S. Open, which, to be honest, that was more who could just handle the chaos of the course instead of who was actually the best golfer. Still earned and whatnot, but uh, at this point, if Scotty's there, Scotty's probably going to win. That's just kind of my thoughts.
Yeah, he came on strong. I know Kim led most of it. Your boy Tony Finau finished 18 under, so that's still tied for 5th. So you had 1, 2, 3, 4 guys tied at 5th. I mean, yeah, but this weekend's tournament's in Detroit. It's the Rocket Mortgage tournament, and I was looking through kind of the card for that one, and yeah, it's not one that I'm going to pay attention to because there's literally no one really worth the flip in this one. Scotty's not in it, and whatnot. I really wish that DeChambeau would play a little more in some of these PGA events. Obviously, I know he can't, but I feel like he's starting to get his rhythm back. So I think that him and Scotty would have a nice little battle going.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. And who knows, maybe the two will merge at some point. Because really, all the fans want. Well, I mean, you have some hardcore fans who are like, anyone who went to live can just leave us alone. But
Yeah.
as a fan, I just want to see the best golfers against the best golfers. Hopefully, one day it can happen. Maybe it won't. But I agree. Bryson and Scotty should have a really good little rivalry going. Um, Unfortunately, we're only going to be able to see it in like major tournaments and stuff, as long as he qualifies for them and whatnot. But um, it's kind of unfortunate for the fans. So we really just have to, I don't know, enjoy what Scotty's doing. It's a run of greatness, no matter who's out there. Golf's a one man sport or woman. Sorry, it's a one person sport. Uh, and no matter who's out there, whoever you're going against, you still have to. I mean, so what? Maybe if all the best golfers aren't in it, you're still shooting like 22 under. It doesn't matter who's out there; you're going to dominate. So I think for now we can just appreciate what Scotty's doing. Hopefully, my boy Tony Finna will start being a little more consistent and actually. The last couple tournaments he's choked towards the end, or had a really bad hole or two uh, that really took him out of it late. But it would be nice to just see a little bit of competition out there, a little rivalry brewing. I mean, I remember when I'm younger, we're tuning in to see Tiger and Lefty. Like we knew Tiger was going to dominate, but Lefty he did his best to make it a good rivalry, and it's good for the game.
I completely agree. Um, Golf's kind of taken off, though. I mean, you're starting to see it become more popular. I think even at the U.S. Open with DeChambeau winning it, you saw the interaction with the crowd, fans. Um, so it's good for the game. It's got not quite a Happy Gilmore feel to it. I mean, some courses do. I think in the Waste Management tournament in Arizona, Um, those guys got the cup snake going there as well too, so they make it a little party scene. So with that, we'll go to the number one sports story this week, and that is congratulations to the Florida Panthers, their first NHL Stanley Cup championship trophy, first in team history. This one went Game 7, and that's all we asked for.
And it was a good Game 7.
It was a fantastic Game 7. Probably one of the better Game 7s that I can remember. Um, not quite how I wanted it to go, because obviously in our podcast with Dakota, I had Edmonton in 6, I believe. You said 4 for Florida, and you were almost close. I mean,
Damn
you
it.
were damn sure close. Um, so going through Game 1, Florida wins 3-0. Game 2, Florida wins 4-1. Game 3, Florida wins 4-3. And then Game 4 is kind of when the tides had turned, and I started thinking Edmonton might actually do the damn thing. 8-1, Game 4. Game 5, Oilers won 5-3. Game 6, Oilers won 5-1, and that set up the all important Game 7. Panthers come out on top 2-1. A lot to dive into with this. I'm going to stick with Game 7 just because that was most intense. The defensive pressure was outstanding. They had a game plan against Connor McDavid. Um, anytime that he would get anywhere close to a fast break, two guys were on him, getting the puck away from him. Reinhart, that first goal, we were both kind of like, how the hell did that go in? Um, see the replay from the backside, and you're like, oh, tiniest spot possible, and he was still able to get that in.
Yeah, I thought both goals by Florida were. That's kind of who they are. We talk all the time, even throughout the regular season, that they're a team that like to get shots on goal. Um, and I thought Game 7 was a prime example of why you do it. Uh, that goal that was, I don't, was the first or second goal that was the tip one. But initially on the shot, that was going to miss 3 feet wide, and then it got stabbed in, and that's why you throw the puck at the net. Uh, we watch some teams, the Blues, their shots on goal aren't always up, but it's because they're looking for the quality shot attempts. And Florida has always been just throw it at the net, good things will happen. And that's kind of what they did in Game 7. Even the second one, it was a little bit of a defensive lap on Edmonton. Two defenders uh, covered the same spot, leaving him wide open. But it was still the tiniest decrease for that goal to go in, and it went in. But I thought Florida got back to being who they were Game 7, and then it was great timing because they didn't have time after. They wouldn't have any time afterwards. Uh, so they left it all out there.
Yeah, and I think you remember back to our podcast with Dakota. We were previewing the Stanley Cup Finals. Dakota and I kind of mentioned the goalies being the X factors. Um, kind of the middle games in the series, not so much. I just think that they were exhausted, honestly. And then Game 7, that's when they really came out. I mean, outside of that tip, that that beautiful tip, and then the Reinhardt shot, both goalies were nails, honestly. And I think in the last 3-4 minutes of that game, you had defenders knocking the goalies over, goalie getting trampled on, and then the defense right there to block it. I think Edmonton had 3 or 4 opportunities with empty net. They just couldn't get the shot on. So that's a huge credit to Florida's defense, but also a huge shout out to Borkowski for being able to stand his ground, essentially.
Yeah, I thought both goalies Game 7 were, uh, and not even the goalies, just everyone. There was a different energy uh, from the time the puck was dropped until that final buzzer sounded. It was fantastic. But both goalies, the Game 7, as a casual fan, not a fan of either team, it's one of those where you kind of just hated to see either team lose because it was just that good of a game for both of them. Obviously, somebody has to win, uh, and it was the Panthers. I think them getting back to who they were was the deciding factor, honestly, because they hadn't looked like themselves since Game 3.
Yeah, and then you look at the time on ice. I mean, McDavid and those guys had to play a good chunk of the third period. Um, you know, 20 plus minutes. You think about it, and it's just, I'm sure it wore on them a little bit. Um, now the questionable part of the Stanley Cup Finals, and weird that they do this. MVP Connor McDavid. I'm only curious because he basically got shut out in Game 6 and Game 7. Um, Typically, you would think an MVP, you're holding the trophy at the end, or at least scoring a game. Like, you may not win Game 7, but you're at least getting a point.
Yeah, I was looking into that. I guess it's that the MVP is for the entire playoffs and not just the finals.
Yeah, that
Um,
makes a little. I mean, he did
so
have.
his playoff run was
Yeah, I mean, those goals. I mean,
it. It is it's weird to think that, uh, and it's not to say he's not good, but what you just pointed out that he was kind of blanked when it mattered. I know that doesn't take away from the entire playoff run, but it kind of should. Um, Pretty historic run with his points and what he was able to do, but uh, even if it's the entire playoff run for that trophy, I'd still think he should be on the winning team. Uh, was anyone on the Panthers from the whole playoff run comparable to McDavid? Maybe, maybe not. But there had to be someone close enough that was deserving because they won it all. One of their players should be the ones that had that trophy. With that being said, I'm never going to say McDavid shouldn't win an award when it's
right,
being considered for the best
right.
player in any kind of situation. But it is kind of odd. Um, that goes to hockey. Hockey's odd. Hockey's awesome. Hockey doesn't give a shit how other sports operate. They're going to do their thing and they're going to do it how they want. Uh, but I do think it should be for the winning team.
Well, it's kind of like Super Bowl MVP, right? How many times has there been a defensive player that you've mentioned that could have easily been Super Bowl MVP, but it goes to the quarterback, right?
Yeah, especially the last like decade, 2 decades. Not
Or
even Super Bowl MVP, just awards in
yeah, I was gonna
general.
say just the MVP, like in general, like all those years, Aaron Donald could have easily been MVP. TJ Watt, I can think of. There was even a season Miles Garrett probably could have even, possibly done it. But
Or
again,
like a McCaffrey or Cooper Cup historic season. Yeah, absolutely. Like that's the one thing I appreciate about what hockey. We're getting into hockey more and more, so I actually appreciate that about hockey to where they're like, we don't really give a shit. It's just going to go who the best player is, win, lose, whatever. Like
right?
this person's the best player. That's what this award's about. That's who it should go to. I appreciate that, and I think the other sports are why I'm sitting back thinking it's odd and it should go to the winning player. So I appreciate him for doing that, and McDavid's never a bad choice. But
No, not at
um,
all.
and I think Florida's fine with it. I mean, they won,
Yeah, I don't
so
think they give shit. They're
yeah,
they're having their time
th-
with the
they're not
cup.
going to protest.
No, not at all. Let's go to an honorable mention for this week. Some other big news with the Lakers. Um, no, not Bronny and LeBron. We'll get to that in a minute. Lakers hired JJ Redick as the next head coach. No head coaching, no coaching experience. He was working for ESPN. Lakers think they got Pat Riley, as I remember reading it. I think that's kind of a long shot.
It's disrespectful to Pat Riley.
And again, that's not saying the dude can't coach. What I am saying is that's a huge risk.
Yeah, if you're going to compare someone to Pat Riley, make sure he has a coaching career first. Uh, 15 years down the road, sure, if he does it. But right now, like, he's nobody as a coach. Let's be honest.
No,
He was a good player, good role player. As a coach, he's accomplished nothing. He's not anybody. He's not Pat Riley. He's not Tom Thibodeau. He's not any. You can't compare him to a coach because he hasn't been a coach.
right?
Uh, could it be a good hire? Of course, it could be.
Mhm.
Uh, my personal opinion: this is the next coach to get fired by LeBron James.
Yeah, and I actually thought the Lakers were doing the right thing by going after Danny Hurley. Um, you're the Lakers, so I feel like you can get that coach if you truly wanted. Um,
Yeah, 70 mil seemed a little low.
yeah, if you're going to go after a coach who's on the verge of possibly going three-peat in the NCAA, I mean, you got to make it worthwhile. Because let's be honest, the Lakers just haven't been a franchise really,
For a while.
and I don't care. I don't count the 2020 bubble season.
It does count, but there is an asterisk.
Same with like when the Dodgers won it in 2020. Like, okay, cool. Like, what have you done for me lately? Type thing. Anyways, I couldn't. I love the move to try to get Danny Hurley. Um, I thought maybe they may shift a little bit once Monty Williams got fired,
That's the one.
right? Not fair what they gave him in Detroit. Let's be honest. Detroit's hasn't been worthy in what 20 years. Um, that's a perfect fit. He's a guy who one has coaching experience, two playoff experience, three I think he can handle LeBron and AD
Let's
and
be
those
honest, he
guys.
probably didn't want to.
I mean, either way, he's getting his 65 million.
Yeah, they might have reached out and he might have been like, I don't want to coach LeBron. I know I see that. I think the only coach that hasn't been fired by LeBron has been Spoelstra.
Yeah, and that's well, LeBron left.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, he probably was like, I'm getting 65 million, so I don't really need to be picky. Which again, that shows where the Lakers are as a franchise because there was a day where anybody and everybody wanted to coach the Lakers, right? Now you got coaches who one are getting fired. Um, but they had okay, right? Okay tenure, right? So
And yeah, I mean, you nailed it. This isn't the Showtime Lakers anymore. Um, their history's great. Not going to take it away. Modern day, they're just another franchise. It's sad to see because there is a lot of history, uh, not just for the Lakers, but for the entire game of basketball that franchise has done or created or been responsible for. But it hasn't been that for a decade or 2 decades almost now. So players aren't lining up to go there. Coaches aren't lining up to go there. And I think until the Lakers start operating as just another franchise and quit thinking that they're still the Showtime Lakers who everyone wants to go to, they're going to kind of be stuck. And that's what they're just stuck.
yeah, and you can also look at one Anthony Davis and JJ Redick don't really get along. That could stem back to their time in New Orleans together when they were both players. Now you got one who's coaching the other one. Um, so now it really becomes interesting just due to the fact that Anthony Davis could be the future of the Lakers still, right? You hire a guy that he's been pretty open about not wanting to really play for. Um, I get it. You want to cater to LeBron and try to do that, but I mean, now you're looking at LeBron possibly not even coming back. I know that the rumor is they're wanting to give him a 3-year max deal, 165 or 166 or something like that, on top of drafting Bronny, which we're going to get into that here in a few.
Yeah, and it was someone on ESPN, it might have been Stephen A. When the search for the Lakers head coach first started, one of them pointed out and said that this should be an Anthony Davis hire. Um,
Yeah, if you're wanting to build around him and you want
yeah,
him to be your player, you would. Yeah,
it, and it wasn't to disrespect LeBron, but I mean, I know he shows no signs of slowing down, but it, it's scientific proof that time catches up to every player at some point, whether it's 1, 2, 3, 5 years. Um, but right now, I think the most important piece to the Lakers is Anthony Davis, and it should have been an Anthony Davis hire. And hell, maybe it was. Maybe him and JJ Redick weren't as beefed up as
they made it out to be.
yeah. So
Yeah,
who knows? I mean, obviously, to the outsider with LeBron and JJ and the podcast and all that, it definitely looks like it. But uh, you'd like to think they consulted AD a little bit too, just given that he's probably the most important piece on that Lakers roster.
yeah. I mean, they better hope so because I mean, they're the West is has always been pretty good, right? Whether it be the Warriors and their dynasty, Phoenix still has KD and Devin Booker. The Nuggets still have Jokic, who's still the best player in the NBA.
T Wolves are up and coming.
T Wolves have probably the best player in the NBA right now in Anthony Edwards. So yeah, if you're the Lakers, this is almost too much of a risk, right? Like the, it's too much to risk your future. One, what's not to say you don't fire the guy after year one or year two? I mean, we've seen the NBA coaches have been fired for way less, right? So if he comes in and they only win like 25, 30 games, I bet they win probably more than that. But just saying if they do, right? Now what are you going to do? Two, LeBron, he's already opted out. What if LeBron just says, nah, not for me. I'm going to go elsewhere. Well, now you just made a hire and you're not, weren't really comfortable with it because obviously he wasn't your first choice. So now what?
Yeah, I don't really know how they're operating. I obviously like the Lakers a lot less with LeBron than I did during the Kobe and Shaq days, but I don't. Maybe they wanted to make a splash move, and that maybe they. You'd hate to think they didn't hire who they thought was the best, but it is the Lakers. Maybe they wanted to make a signature statement. Who knows? Maybe we're sitting here in a couple years and JJ came in and rattled off a couple championships to start, and we're singing a whole different tune. So, um,
That would
I
suck.
yeah, right. Last thing we need is LeBron to win a couple more. But um, yeah, who knows? I first thought was it's a weird hire. Maybe it's the nicest way to put it. Um, you're hiring a dude who's the same age or younger than some of your players. It's it's going to be interesting. Even if it's a smooth season, there's going to be a stretch that's difficult, and I'm curious to see how that goes. Is JJ commanding that huddle, or is LeBron just going to be like, "Dude, I'm LeBron James. I'm far superior than you. I'm running this team." So I'm curious to see how all that goes. The first kind of heated discussion on the sideline, on the benches, or something. That's really what the coach is for. I mean, you could get into X's and O's, but we really don't know what JJ's X's and O's are. Uh, if it wants his team to play like he did, they're just going to shoot a bunch of threes, play average to mediocre defense. Uh, but yeah, there's more to it than just he's not no coaching experience. Like, what's the X's and O's? How's he handle all the egos, especially when one of them's LeBron? So you'd like to think they did all this in an interview. Like to think they liked what they heard, but until it happens, I don't know if I can get behind the hire.
Yeah, I'm as we sit here today, not a fan of the hire. Who knows? Maybe like you said, next year we may be singing a different tune. Uh, Highly doubt it. I really do. Um, that's going to wrap it up for Shovicks Sports Hits. Those were the top three plus the honorable mention, obviously, with JJ Redick. I kind of do want to transition a little bit over. We're not going to spend too much time on the NBA draft, but there's a couple key points here that I want to hit real quick. Um, One, we saw the mock draft earlier on ESPN, and I knew what, two or three of those guys. The rest of them, I had no fucking clue who's getting drafted. So let's dive into Bronny real quick. Obviously, there's a whole thing of, you know, I'm going to get drafted because of who I am. It's not who my dad is. That's lies. You're getting drafted because you're LeBron's son. Two, probably going to be the Lakers. Three, who's going to try to fuck with the Lakers and make them maybe make a move that they don't want to make, but basically just make the Lakers look like fools.
Uh, I don't know who it will really be. I will give you two teams who I think it would be funny if they either traded up right in front of the Lakers to draft Bronny, um, or just took Bronny just to tell LeBron and the Lakers to go screw themselves. I think it'd be funny if the Clippers or the Celtics ended up with Bronny for obvious reasons. I mean, they share a city with the Lake or the Clippers, so uh, Bronny playing in the same city as his dad. It's kind of what everyone thought, right? But wrong team. And then the Celtics, just because it's the Celtics, they're pretty. I mean, they could work on some depth, but at this point, your team is Tatum, Brown, Holiday, Porzingis. Like, why not just any chance you can to kind of take a jab at LeBron or the Lakers, you take it. So I think if one of those two teams uh, take Bronny or make the Lakers pay for him, it would kind of just be funny.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know if I have like a funny situation of what would happen to Bronny. Honestly, I think it'd be funny if he did go undrafted. Um, Obviously, that's not going to happen. Because let's be honest, the dude can play basketball. He is pretty good. Um, Again, he's not LeBron's son. We're not sitting. He's not getting any of this attention right now. We're not sitting here talking about that.
He'd
Honestly,
probably be back in college.
yeah, and we're honestly probably not talking about the NBA draft outside of obviously KU has a couple guys. But we'll get to that here in a minute. But we're not talking about him if he's not LeBron's son, right? So I don't know. Maybe it'd be funny if you know there's a team out there that just drafts him, but they know they have like no outside chance of getting LeBron. Because obviously, whoever gets LeBron is this, slither of a hope that he may come play with you. Um, I think he only worked out with the Lakers and the Suns, but I don't think the Suns have any draft picks. Um, or if they do, it's not when it's without in not the range that they think LeBron's going to go. Um, but yeah, I just again I kind of like your idea of the Clippers or the Celtics. I hope not the Celtics. We're not going to stoop that low. Um, Clippers, on the other hand, that'd be hilarious because I heard that they're looking to maybe shop Paul George. Um, but then if they did trade him, I saw that DeMar DeRozan might be interested in going out there too. So I was like, well, awesome. But again, the NBA offseason is always fucking out. Like it's whack. Honestly, we've already seen big trades. We've seen a couple guys get max extensions already. I think Tatum is up for a $315 million extension next contract. So probably going to sign him to that here in the next week or so, if not sooner. So let's transition over to the KU guys. All right, Kevin McColler, Johnny Furphy. We're both in the same camp of Johnny probably should have came back one more year, right? Kind of a Grady Dick situation. Obviously, Grady kind of turned it on there at the end of his rookie year. Struggled there at the beginning of the season one to get PT. When he did get PT, he was not very good. But then some stuff got shuffled around in Toronto. I think he was averaging close to 15 points there in the back end of the season. So good future for him, possibly. Um, I think Kevin McColler is kind of an interesting one. He's big, right? So he's got the NBA size. He plays defense. Uh, I think the knock on him is the consistent shooting.
Yeah, I think with McCullough, shout out Fran. The issue with him is the NBA draft is 100% off potential. Uh, and his potential, I mean, I think you've already seen him reach his ceiling. He's a 3 and D guy, with the 3 part being average at best, and the D part being what's elite with him. He's a great defender. Um, he'll have a role. Uh, I think best case scenario for him is says 6th or 7th guy on a roster, and that's at best. Um, he has the experience, the body, and all of that to where he is going to have an NBA career, uh, just not the highest ceiling. With Fran,
Johnny,
I got Fran on the mind. Yeah, with Furphy, um, his potential is massive. Uh, he still has a little growing and maturing to do, uh, but since he's off potential, uh, he should. I don't want to say he's a lottery pick because I honestly don't know where he's projected, but he should be mid to late teens since it is potential. He's someone who I think with 2 more years at KU would have turned into a lottery pick or top 5 or 6 pick. He's someone he still has to grow into his body. The NBA is a grown man's game, even if they do think it's gotten soft. But these are still big boys out there, and there's a big difference from a Desmond Bain and a Furphy.
yeah, absolutely.
You can even say Furphy could have more talent. I'm not saying he does, but he can have more talent than some guy. But these are grown men. Uh, Even if you're talented enough to play right now, you can still get pushed around uh, and take a couple years. Never going to be mad that these kids are going to get their money. Um, you never know what's going to happen at any point. Uh, so I never judge them for doing that or blame them for doing that. But Furphy's someone who, uh, if he came back another year or two, he would have easily been a top 5 to 7 pick.
And when we get into the college basketball season, you'll hear us talk more about the KU team. Um, and we obviously didn't talk much about them this last season for good reasons. But we went back home over the weekend and we were talking, uh, our buddy Derek and his father-in-law Tim, about KU's team last year, and we were freaking out about how bad this team was. Right?
Right, they're
That's a,
bad.
that's a bad season for KU, but that's a top-notch coaches getting raised for other schools, right? Johnny Furphy was a bright spot for KU last year. Those first few games, the dude was on point, and you can obviously tell towards the end of the season he kind of hit a wall. His confidence was lacking. Uh,
And that's part of the growth.
And he's got to. I mean, he's got to get drafted into the right spot. He can't go to any of the shitty franchises, Pistons, Lakers, some of those teams. And he's got to be in the right spot. I think with a good veteran core that he has a chance to learn from. Honestly, I'd love to see him in Denver. Honestly, I really do. And that's not because it's because it's a veteran led team. He doesn't have to worry about being the guy year one. He probably won't play that much here in year one, but he's going to get better practicing, especially against those guys. I'm not a Nuggets fan. I just like their roster for some reason.
Because it has KU on it
And obviously
already.
Christian's on there. So we're gonna wrap this basketball talk up here real quick. I want to ask you, who gets drafted first tonight between those three that we just talked about? Bronny, Johnny, Kevin.
I was wondering how you're going to try to rhyme.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Just to point out, this is a very weak draft.
Super weak. This is terrible.
We were sitting there, and it's no disrespect to him because he's a quality basketball player in college. But Reed Shepherd was projected third, and I'm just like,
he had Dalton Connect.
Yeah,
at 6 or 7 or something like that.
All good players, but
good college players.
Didn't Tatum go third?
And Brown.
Yeah, so and in this draft that's supposed to be Reed Shepherd. I don't know. Anyway,
that would be interesting to go back and look from the draft because Jaylen Brown was drafted the year before Jason Tatum, or but maybe vice versa. But either way, you could look at that draft and look at all the number 3 picks since then, and you're going to possibly see Reed Shepherd's name on there.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's been other terrible picks.
Had Kwame Brown's at number 1.
Yeah,
we get it that it's a bust sometimes, but I don't know. It's just it's wild to me. But between those 3, I kind of just stick with Bronny. And it's just because I have a gut feeling. I think the Lakers take him at 17. It's they cater LeBron.
If I knew which button was on here, I would hit that button to laugh at you.
Yeah, I'm not saying they should, but it's just if you look at everything since I don't even say since LeBron's gotten to LA. Since LeBron's gotten into the league, every team he's been on has catered to him.
Yeah.
And he can say what he wants to the public of, I don't care if we draft my son or not, yada yada yada. Behind closed doors, I bet you're I want him. I want to play with my son.
And that's not to say he doesn't want to play with his son, but at the same time, it's I'm
not blaming him. That'd be cool shit.
And you wonder why your franchise is where it's at. Yeah. That's the first thing. And that's not just saying you picking him at 17 or thinking that's where he's going to go at 17.
Yeah, and I mean, if the Lakers do the right thing, then I actually think McColler goes first. He already has the experience, and he has the NBA body already since he was in college for 40 years. He's already a grown-ass man. He's already elite at defense. There's going to be that team, and I don't know the draft order. I got to be honest. I don't.
Yeah, we don't.
I don't follow that closely.
And I'm not going to look it up either.
But more than not, there's that team who's mid-teens, late teens, early 20s, who has a really good roster but kind of had a down year. Kind of like when the Warriors, they had all those injuries and then came back and had a top pick. There's going to be a team like that in there where they're not necessarily drafting on a future all-star. They want that player who can come in and kind of contribute at least a little bit right away.
Yep.
And he's the most NBA ready right now, even though his ceiling is probably higher than Bronny. No offense. I did average 3 points in the Pac-12. Anyway, even though he has a low ceiling, right now he is the most NBA ready. So that's why I think he would go first.
Yeah, I got Kevin going in the first round. It'll obviously be in the 20s. I'm guessing from 20 to whenever the last pick in the first round is. Then I have Johnny going before Bronny. I do think I'm going to buy into what I've been hearing other sports people saying on about that 55 area. That's not to say that someone doesn't mess with the Lakers a little bit and maybe fuck everything up with that, but
and to just say something nice. Kind of been ragging. If Bronny were to go in that 50 to 60 range towards the end of the draft, that's respectable because let's be honest, there is potential there. If he turns out to even be half of what his dad is. It's a quality
That's a
pick.
quality. Yeah.
You know, he's young. There's still growth potential, development, um, and there is that slight chance that he does kind of become a version of his father. Um, so, like when you get to that point, that's kind of what you're banking on. Like,
Yeah, and the player comp is Austin Rivers is what I've been seeing a lot of. Austin Rivers had an okay career, right?
yeah,
6 man, coming off the bench. I think he even started. I don't remember with who, but I think he was a starter for a little bit. But he still had an okay career, and I know he's not playing now. He's still young. He probably could get on an NBA roster too. If the team gave him a chance. So again, and that's not saying Jokic was taken for 41st during a Taco Bell commercial, right? So I mean, look at him. He's won MVP 3 out of the last
yeah.
5 years.
When you get
So
to that point, you're drafting someone who you think can develop into something. There's nobody sitting at 41 where you draft him and you're like future All Star, Hall of Famer, let's go.
yeah, no,
At that point, you're like, does he fit our scheme? Does he fit what we like? Is there some growth here? Let's see what we have. And I think that's a fair place to take Bronny.
yeah,
I do.
yeah. And I still think, and not being a KU homer, but I still think Johnny's kind of a dark horse. I think he could sneak into the first round in the right situation. Uh, you could get to those teams that obviously just need, a depth piece. That ninth, 10th, or 11th man. Um, I think the last projected that we saw back way back, I think KU was still playing and had Kevin still in the first, and it had Johnny in the first. Kind of fluctuated between the first and second round for both of them. But I still think Johnny could be a dark horse. But if I had to pick tonight, I'm going Kevin, Johnny, then Bronny, um, in that order, with Kevin still being in the first round. Uh,
That's the order it should be.
that's the order it should be. So it's not really me going out on a limb. That's not to say that dude put $500 down for Bronny to be the number one overall pick for 250K.
If he's the number one overall pick, I quit NBA. That's all I
That's
got.
that's true. And we don't really watch the NBA until the playoffs anyway. So, and even then, we don't really watch much. It's got to be a good matchup. So let's transition, kind of finish up the episode. PFF actually put out something earlier today. I kind of want to get your thoughts on it. Um, they listed their top 10 defensive lines for the NFL this upcoming season.
Lines or linemen?
Defensive lines, like as a
unit?
unit.
Okay.
Yep. And obviously, we're football sluts. If there's any chance for us to talk football, we're going to talk football.
And specifically with me, I'm a football defensive slut.
Yeah.
Defense.
So I'm gonna read you the top 10 before we dive into it. This is PFF per Sam Monson. Um, number 1, New York Jets. Number 2, San Francisco 49ers. Number 3, Philadelphia Eagles. 4, Detroit Lions. 5, Cleveland Browns. 6, Dallas Cowboys. 7, Indy, is in Indianapolis Colts. 8, which is I got thoughts on the Pittsburgh Steelers. 9, Raiders. 10, Houston Texans. I'm going to give you the mic first.
I don't even know how to process this. Uh, what?
I'll give him the Jets at 1. I think the top 2 are good. The
I
Jets
didn't
and
even
Niners.
know the Jets at 1. Like, oh man, that's and then the Steelers,
Yeah,
whatever they were. Like,
so let me say that then, because that's the first one that stood out to me, and that's the whole reason why I wanted to.
well, I guess if they're going units to drop off from T.J. Watt to whoever's second on that front, like
You
I
still got
get it.
Cam Hayward.
I-
You still got Highsmith.
You don't have to sell me. Like I'm taking the Steelers over anyone because I want T.J. Watt. Um, with that being said, uh, I'm going to sound like a homer, but I don't know how the Chiefs aren't on there. I mean, they've been top 2 or 3 in sacks the last few years. Chris Jones, George Karlaftis is coming into his own. We've re-signed like everyone from. I'm not saying they're up there with the Jets, but I'm saying like,
Well, you found point 2 of why I wanted to read this list.
but their defensive line is better than the Texans. Their defensive line's m- maybe better than the Raiders. Uh, Chris Jones and Max Crosby are pretty much there. I know they signed Christian Wilkins. He had kind of a career year. That line has potential to be good. So I guess if that's what they're going off, what they think this season's going to be like, I guess I get it. I don't know what they're basing it off of, um, but then I, to me, in any form, the top three should be the Browns, the Niners, and the Steelers. Um, any defensive line that has Miles Garrett, T.J. Watt, or Nick Bosa, those belong in the top three. I don't care what else is around them. Those three alone make the rest of the people in that unit that much better. Um, I don't mind the Eagles being on the list. They're pretty stacked. They may not have that superstar,
Yeah,
but they're good.
and they lost Reddick and Cox, so they're. I mean, but
But
you have Jalen Carter,
and
so I get.
Davis, and
Yeah,
like they still have pieces. The Lions is surprising to me. Uh, Aiden Hutchinson is a beast. Um, I can see maybe them towards the end of the. They're another one I think Chiefs defense line's better than. Uh, I'll give that right now. Um, I I'm curious on what actually went into these rankings. It it seems to me like kind of just reputations going off of it. Uh, yeah, like the Jets were a pretty good unit, but uh, I don't know if I'm gonna say they're the best unit. Uh, they seem to pick the teams who maybe had one good player, kind of drop them on the list a little bit. So I don't know what went into their list, but I first thought I don't agree with it.
yeah. So, would you take Pittsburgh's over the Jets?
Yeah,
Would you take Pittsburgh's over the Niners?
no, I think the 1, 2, 3 should be Niners, Steelers, Browns.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning that too, because I definitely don't think Indianapolis has a better one than Pittsburgh. Um, Detroit, no. So I agree with you. Is I don't understand their thoughts behind it. Um, Potential, but even if you're going based on potential, you would still put the Chiefs at least in the top 10, right? Like you said, Chris Jones, Karlaftis, those guys. Um, but maybe it's the year they sleep on the Chiefs, or this is the year the Chiefs fall off. I don't know. Let's not start that narrative though. Um,
This had to be a potential list because if they're going off last year, there's no way the Lions are in the list. The Texans aren't in the list. It probably helps that they got what was it, Daniil Hunter?
mhm.
Uh, so that has to be potential. Now they got him and Anderson. Um, the potential of Crosby and Wilkins with the Raiders. I don't know. It's still a stretch for me. I think the three teams I mentioned, they just deserve more respect, and not even the Chiefs, just the one. If you asked any franchise that's not on this list, so we'll just use the Panthers because they were the worst team last year. Would they rather have the Jets defensive line, or would they rather have the defensive lines that had Miles Garrett, Nick Bosa, or T.J. Watt? They're not taking the Jets.
Yeah,
They're going to take the ones with the superstar and live with the other players that come with it.
I still like the Jets one. I would go Pittsburgh two, maybe 1A. They're almost built identical. Their defenses are right. It's like you look Steelers. Obviously, their offense was only averaging like 10 points a game last year, so that doesn't help. But that means you have a really good fucking defense because you're still able to make the playoffs.
But let me ask you, besides Quinn and Williams, what are the Jets really running out there?
Well, they got Hassan Reddick now.
So this is a potential list.
I mean,
It has to
it
be.
is a potential list.
Yeah, and
Um,
I guess the potential is there. I mean, they were a good unit last year, so it's not like we can say how the Jets make it even if it was off last year. Like they are a good unit, but I don't know.
no,
You can't take a unit that doesn't have.
and I'm sure they're going to come out with more of these lists for us to make fun of a little bit as the season gets closer. It's just one that stood out to me today when I was reading it because one, I saw where Pittsburgh was ranked and I was like, ooh. And then two, I saw that the Chiefs weren't even on there. So that was the whole reason why I wanted to bring that up. Um, Not to say that PFF's not good. Their rating system is what the NFL uses, though. You see it every Sunday night when they're going through the starting lineups and their PFF ranks. So I mean, the NFL uses it. So we're going to continue to kind of look at it as well. Um, yeah, that's still wild. That's still wild because I love the Steelers defensive line. Um,
But I'm even trying to think of some other ones. Like obviously, I went straight to the Chiefs because to me, like we have a superstar in Chris Jones, we have a really up and coming in George, but like
I think the Giants,
the Giants, if they're going off potential,
right?
the Saints, they're always good.
Yep.
the Bucks, any D line that has Vita, like any defensive line that you literally can't run up the middle on, should be in there. Like, I know it's all pass rush and everything, but they have talent around Vita, but that's the main one. Like, you can't run up the middle on him. Plain and simple. That's huge. Um, Especially if they're going off potential, what they think. So yeah, it's an odd list. I think those units that were listed were all the pass rush units, which probably should be prioritized anyway. Um, I'd be curious. I feel like there's a lot of good teams that probably could make the list. So uh, you know, they probably broke it down to the tiniest detail because the Packers have a good line. Um, there's a lot of teams that probably coulda or shoulda by a fraction. So uh, be curious and like save that list, and we can revisit that like week 8 and just kind of compare what it's
See where
going to.
everyone's at.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I'm sticking with it. T.J. Watt, Nick Bosa, and Miles Garrett are who they are for a reason, and I don't care what you put together. Um, I'm taking those units.
Well, yeah. Now that Aaron Donald's obviously retired and out of the league, I mean, even last year, I mean, Aaron Donald wasn't at his best, right? But now that he's not in the category, obviously that kind of takes the Rams down just a smidge. Um,
I think the biggest surprise, and it's just because, man, I think for as long as we've been watching football, anything that had a defensive list, this team was on. And I think the surprising one, and hell, maybe you said him and I missed it, but like the Ravens.
yeah, I didn't see the Ravens on that list.
I Again, if it's off potential, I don't even care the names who are on that defense. Like they're almost always a top 10 unit.
Yeah, so I think what we're coming to is we just don't agree with that list.
No, and we typically don't with PFF. I mean, just to give an example, during the money days, they always had Tyrann Mathieu. Uh, I don't want to say overrated because their system was one of the ones that didn't have him as an elite safety,
Yeah,
but they had him as a good one. And I think I can speak for any Chiefs fan that watched him. He was not. So we don't always agree with PFF, but it is good to spark a conversation, which is what we're all about. Um, and this is one I would like to revisit for sure, given my love for defense and the fact that I think the list is dog shit.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I'm surprised you didn't say Denver belonged on the list.
no, not quite. Um, there's potential on Denver's defense. Zach Allen had a way better year last year than I thought. Um, you know, DJ Jones did his thing, but now we're coming up with um, Nick Benito, those edge rushers. So I mean, the jury's still out. I'm okay with Denver not being on that list. Um,
Let's touch on America's team for a minute. Do you think they deserve to be on the list?
I do. I still think Micah Parsons obviously is on the D line sometimes. Um, but you still got Marcus Lawrence. You lost Dorrance Armstrong at least, but the pieces are still there for those guys. Um, Ask me again in week 5, week 6. My thoughts on that because you know I am on the boat of I think Dan Quinn's going to be a bigger loss than some people think. Um, but going into the season, I would still put Dallas there. I would put them more towards 10 um, than anything, but I still think it's there.
Well, and I'm glad you mentioned the name because I'm actually surprised that I don't even remember what their goddamn team name is.
Commanders.
That's it. How are they not on there?
Yeah, that's wild.
They got Dorrance. They've had a couple elite D tackles. I think they still have one of the sweats. They probably don't. I think that's one they traded.
Yeah,
I
they
think they
traded.
traded him and Young, didn't they?
Yeah, I think they got Allen.
Yeah. So I don't know. That's another one that is overlooked. I guess the main point of this is there's a lot of good defensive lines in the league.
Yeah, there is. So I'm starting to think we've got to take a little. We did. I guess we did the draft, the defensive line for the draft, but we may have to break this down a little more for an episode, just to kind of maybe put our own list together. Not next week though. Next week I'm super fucking stoked. It's about that time. It's KU football season. We're gonna do a little KU football preview. Um, could be our year. Could be our year. Um, Playoffs expanded to 12 teams. Excited if this roster can stay healthy. I love the recruits that we're getting that are coming in. I'm excited for the recruits in the future as well. It's just what we've been able to land over the last few days. Uh, no doubt in my mind that Lance is going to have those boys ready, and we're going to break it all down for you guys next week. What's your thoughts on that?
Uh, and just to give the listeners a little bit of how uh, your dynamic and my dynamic go together, specifically with KU football. Before he gets hyped,
I get lit, bro.
he gets hyped.
I get lit.
Even pre-Lance,
The whole Les Miles days.
yeah,
Even David Beatty.
it was natty every year. I'm a fan. He's a fan. We both love KU football. He gets hyped. I'm more the realistic one. Uh, I'm not going to speak for him, but I hope when he says it's our year, could be our year, he's not talking about a natty.
The fuck else would I be talking about?
See, that's my point. Like, of course, every year could be every team's year. Realistically, college football playoff is definitely realistic. If that's what he meant by it could be our year, then absolutely. But um, our dynamic is he gets hyped. I try to be realistic and honestly rain on his parade. Kind of a dick move. I get it, but it's better as the years go on with Lance. It's getting harder for me to reel him in because it's more realistic now. Uh, he hasn't quite pulled me over to the hype train, but each year that passes, I'm closer. But that's kind of our dynamic that you'll probably see a little bit during a KU episode where you might come out and be like, well, I guess we can't. We were going over KU schedule, and I literally
That's
put
the worst.
a bunch of W's.
I was getting ready to go over that. I'm like, bro, you're looking at it and you're like, dub, dub, dub. And then at the end, you're like, oh shit, I have them going 12-0.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay.
Right as I was starting to say that, I'm like, shit, I'm the one that said they were going undefeated. So hell, maybe he did get me on the hype train. Typical, he's hyped. I reel it in a little bit. I guess you'll just have to tune in to see how it really is going to go.
Tune in next week. I have some numbers I'm going to break down for you guys about KU and their playoff chances. Also, the Big 12. We may kind of look overview of the Big 12. Obviously, next week's all about the Jayhawks, so we're not going to dive too far into what everyone else in the Big 12 is doing.
Because they don't really matter.
Sorry, Justin, K-State. So, yeah, make sure to tune in next week. I hope you guys enjoyed our first segment of the Shovicks Sports Hits. We're hoping to make that a regular thing. We're also working on getting some more guests on here. You can find us on Instagram now as well. Go follow us on that page. And then find us on Spotify. We're working on some kinks with Apple. I'm excited because we're going to start posting it on iHeartRadio as well. I know that's a very popular site. So find us again on Instagram. Give us a comment. Give us a like. Tell us what you want to hear us talk about. If you have questions or if you want to come on the show, DM us. Until next week, see you guys later.